Hello, dancers, and welcome to the Level Up West Coast Swing podcast. Today, I'm really excited because two of my favorite dancers, as most of you know, if you've heard me talk about anything West Coast Swing, I'm referring to Semion and Maria. Um, they have come on board as our founding pros within the Level Up community, which is amazing. So I just want to say a huge welcome to Semion and Maria.
Thank you, Steve. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for having
Steve.
us. Hello, everyone. We're super excited to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for having us on that project. Like we feel super grateful, excited, and we feel responsibility for it as well.
Yeah, me too. Me too now. It's like another level of responsibility because um I think over the years we've worked together really well on different things. You've done choreography for me in the past, obviously coaching, private lessons, things like that. So and then what you've done previously with Level Up. So yeah, this sort of takes it to the next level. And I know we have, well, I know in my mind I have got so much planned, and we're just sort of unveiling that together and working through that. So exciting things to come. I can't wait.
That's
Yeah.
definitely a level up for our relationship.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Um, so for this podcast, I have a number of topics I kind of wanted to dive into. Um, I know a lot about your story, but I know when I talk to some of my friends, say in Australia, and I mention, "Oh, Semion Maria, blah 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 blah," and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And so I kind of wanted to ask you some questions about your dance journey together, and then and your dance history, but also something that I know about you both is how much you love to teach and to share and to see people grow and develop their skills. So we can dive into all of those topics today, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, with pleasure.
Awesome. So, first of all, how did both of you discover dancing? Like, when was that? Just dancing in general.
Mm, dancing in general. So me, I think I wanted to dance my whole life, but I started dancing when I was like 17, maybe 18. Started from just some university groups and projects. Like in the university, when you can enter some like dance group for like some performances. So there I was starting learning modern jazz and some contemporary choreography from like scratch. And I was training at home a lot, like learning the choreography because we were having like the annual project, like for the whole year, we were learning some performing dance, and then we were performing it a few times on the university um, festivals, let's say. Yeah, and that was my enter into the like dancing and movement. And then I was looking for some partner dancing because I loved ballroom, but I thought I'm too old for ballroom in my 17, 18 because
Right.
most people start ballroom at like
Six.
6,
When
7.
when
Yeah,
I started dancing ballroom when I was 8, and I was already too old.
yeah. So
Wow.
uh, yeah, so you can see that I was like 10, at least 10 years late on the ballroom thing. So I was like, okay, maybe I can find another partner options. And a friend of mine brought me to Hustle and Disco Fox. And it was like very close. Like on 17, I started the solo university thing. And then like 18, 19, I started Hustle and Disco Fox.
One thing that I appreciate with your culture there is how much they appreciate the arts. And like as dancers, for example, like I follow a woman, I think her name's Joy Womack, who's a ballerina. And she was the first American, I think, to graduate from the Russian ballerina school. I can't remember the name.
Mhm.
And she would do video diaries of it on YouTube. It's amazing to watch. And the
Mm.
heartache and the heartbreak when things go wrong or injury happens or just the daily grind and the level of, I'm going to say, perfectionism in the arts and the way that they, most of all, the way that they value it and the importance that, um, you know, that your, let's say, your country puts on those kind of things and that athletic prowess. It's amazing from a cultural point of view. Whereas where I live, no one dances. Dance is not a thing, especially for guys. It's even worse. But um, so that it's funny. And Semion, you mentioned like you started ballroom at 8. Was that your first time
No,
dancing?
before that, I danced maybe like for 1 year and a half, something like that. At school, it was ballroom plus like folk dancing, like polka and stuff like that, like kids dancing, right?
Yeah.
Like dancing like a duck and something like that, right? To feel the rhythm. But before
I
that,
just saw some video of you guys dancing to some chicken song.
Yeah,
I
that's
I think
So
when
did you use or is that why you did that so well? You
that's
used
why
your
someone
experience?
did
I think yeah, because my career as a chicken became
I said early.
started like when I was 6. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so funny. I actually never thought about that you mentioned it, but yeah, it's true because we have a very popular like dancing like a duck for kids dance choreography, and
Yeah.
in Russia it's pretty common. And before that, I did a little bit of like rhythm dancing, but I don't remember this at all when I was like 4 or 5. Um, but yeah, around 8 years old, I really wanted to start dancing ballroom, and I actually asked my mom like to switch to more serious dancing from my school's dance studio to the actual ballroom dance studio, and it was also a girl who I really like to dance. I would like to dance with, and she also was in this studio. So we talked to our parents, and we both went to like serious ballroom dancing. And most of the kids already were dancing for like 1 or 2 years, so we were feeling that we're kind of like behind everyone else. But after during the first summer break, during the summer in ballroom studios, you don't have lessons, so you actually have holidays. But in August, July, usually you have dance camps. And during the first dance camp, I remember it really well. We went to another city by train, like it was like 36 hours trip by train, and we spent like 10 days there. It was my first long period without parents, right? I had only a parent of my partner, but I didn't have my mom and my dad. And after these 10 days, we were dancing like 8 hours a day with other dancers who
Wow.
were, most of them, like way older than us. But it was really good for us because after these 10 days, we went back to our dance studio, and nobody could recognize us because we were dancing at such a better level. And from this period, I remember it really well because when we started to dance West Coast Swing, we immediately found out about like Sunnyside Dance Camp, West on the Promenade in France, some camps when you actually can dance every day for like a week. And I know it from my childhood that it could improve your dancing tremendously when you dance like for a week every day, several hours, you know?
That's amazing. So, um, when did you or what was it about West Coast Swing that you kind of both went, "Ah, this is the one"? 'Cause, Disco Fox is kind of similar, right?
It is. I think now we have a bit more similarity in forms. but the mechanic and rhythm of the dance is very different. And
It's
back
different.
then, it was more different than now.
Right.
Um, yeah, so as I was saying, I think the last time on our another conversation that West Coast Swing didn't cut me um, from the first touch, yeah, because in Disco Fox the rhythmical base is different and it's way more simple, and the coverage of the space is very quick. Yeah, so you kind of just like passing with your partner in different directions, like very quickly. And in West Coast Swing, it like 6 counts for side pass. Yeah, for example,
Yep.
in Disco Fox, it's like 3, 4 maximum.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So the rhythmical idea, I didn't cut that yet, and I was like struggling with trying to be slower in like reaching the end of the line of the slot. So that's why, like for me, it was at first like it just didn't make sense because obviously I didn't understand the mechanic and like the good feeling of it. But then, like I was doing my efforts on like going to the classes, like going to some um, like camps that were organized in our city. Yeah, because the studio that we've been to organized some classes with different teachers. So I was kind of going there. Uh, and then at some point, I started to like feel a bit more sense in the rhythm, in the groove of West Coast Swing, in the elasticity. And since then, for me, it was the click, how much like better feeling I have during the dance, how much more attention I have from my partner, and I can give myself as well. And that just like good feeling of the dance got me right away after I like got that feeling.
Yeah. That's what gets us all hooked, I think, is when you feel that and then you're like, "Oh, I just want that again." And literally
Yeah.
you'll go to a social and you dance dance after dance after dance, and then one song with one random person, and it's like, there it is. It's like some magical moment that happens on the dance floor, and it's like you can't explain it, but that's what happened. Yeah. Was it similar for you, Semion? Like, what was it with West Coast Swing that kinda stood out or made you gravitate towards it?
I think several reasons. One of the reason is teaching because I was kind of like asked to help to teach at first, and then to start to teach at the dance studio where I was learning like salsa and hustle and West Coast swing, like all types of social dancing, bachata as well. And then another thing, I started to search for West Coast Swing, and I remember it really well because I watched Jordan with the Jessica Cox, Jordan Frisbee and Jessica Cox. I think it was Boogie by the Bay, like 2011 or maybe 2012. And they had Jack and Jill together, and I watched this dance, and I'm like, well, I couldn't believe that it's improved, that they can actually lead and follow this. And I started to analyze this dance and watch all the DVDs and everything. And I think the complexity of the dance and how it can be beautiful, dynamic, and improvised at the same time. I think because of that many layers, and I didn't understand them at all. But I was just amazed by how they executed everything on the dance floor in the moment, and they played with that. So I saw behind everything, behind this art, I saw a game of all of it, and I think because of that, I got hooked immediately.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I wanted to chat to you also about your growth as dancers. So then obviously having a good amount of dance experience and then coming together, and let's say we'll fast forward to where you and Maria become partners and start dancing together. Um, do you remember times when you felt like uh, the frustrations that some of us feel where as we're growing, we're learning, like especially in the early days, there's so much to learn and you're picking things up and developing as a dancer and improving your skills. But then quite often, we find a lot of dancers reaching a plateau where they kind of feel a bit stuck, like they're not quite getting something or that kind of thing, and that sort of frustration. Was there anything like that that you can remember where you've just felt like, oh, we're not sure why, but you've been stuck on something until later on you've kind of worked it out?
Yeah, I remember very well that I was uh, trying to understand and learn all the patterns as leader, and my goal was kind of like to learn all patterns. But the difficulty was that many of them I could dance with Maria, for example, because we practiced a lot. But I was struggling um, to do it on the social dance floor with other followers because I was lacking a lot of techniques. Uh, and I think I even practiced for my Jack and Jules and Strictly when I was like in novice, in intermediate. I was practicing intentionally patterns which are common for everyone. I remember it really well because I understood that I don't have access to like best coaches in the world, right? And we didn't have money to travel. So I was basically betting on the quality of movement, right?
Yep.
And I was dancing the same patterns over and over and over, just to feel them better. And because I knew that I can dance these patterns with all followers, and I could have potentially more chances to like make finals or maybe place in finals, something like that. And then step by step, I was changing these patterns a little bit there, a little bit there to play with kind of like you dance a basic whip with outside turn, but then you add extra turn and then you add a hand change, like small details, right? Rather than a big, flashy, like trick or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember this frustration very well. I think for years, many movement I could not do until I met like Max Holmes and Benji and Robert Royston and Ben Morris, until I met them during the workshop, during the pilot lessons, and until I got this physics in my body, which could help me to lead like almost every follower into the um, type of movement there.
That's amazing. I can relate to that actually because I remember going. We had three different like main schools here where I am, and they all taught West Coast Swing differently. Semion, you've heard this because you've been my therapist on West Coast Swing because of it. Um, but what would happen is I'd learn like a pattern in one class, and then I would go to the social in the other class, and I would lead it, but it wouldn't work. But then I would go back to the original school, and I would lead it, and it would work with everyone because they knew it. And I always struggled with that. I was like, "What am I not doing? Like, how am I?" And it was only, funnily enough, it was only when you, Simeon, you coached me on uh, your level 1, level 2, level 3 drills with eccentric, concentric connection and all this sort of thing. That particular teaching changed my whole dancing because then everything was through the connection, not by patterns. And and I still hear this today when sometimes some followers will say to me, "Oh, I went to such and such school, and the leader tried to lead them in something and it didn't work." And the leader turned to them and said, "Oh, you mustn't know that pattern." And they're like, "Well, I would do it if you led me in that way." But they're just at that stage of development. Um, I think that's probably a common one for leaders. What about yourself, Maria? Was there something that you felt like you plateaued in and you kind of struggled with for a while before having a breakthrough?
Oh yeah, a lot. Uh, I think from the early days when watching the videos of pros and like especially like analyzing how followers are dancing and moving, like the leg work and like that smoothness in the motion and speed, but at the same time, very controlled motion was my, I don't know, Roman Empire because I, as a disco fox follower, I couldn't slow down myself like almost at all. Like to do a slow motion, I almost was not able because in disco fox we trained to be fast. So the main quality that disco fox quality back in the days that disco fox follower was building is the speed of the step, speed of the transition, speed of the turn. Yeah, so that helped me in some ways, but watching that smoothness of West Coast swing followers gave me the frustration because I was like, I can't slow down, like I can't do that triple with a slower turn. Like I turn immediately, like, and I'm in the position like very quick. So that was like the leg work and articulation and like the speed of the rotation. That in Vesco swing, it's a little smoother, was very hard for me at first. And like for years, I think I was kind of struggling with that. Yeah, and also I think the following part because in Vesco swing the patterns are longer and than disco fox, and those like windows of reading, yeah, for the readers are also longer, and I'm so quick. I almost felt like I can't follow. I'm unable to follow because I have absolutely different priorities. So I always try to finish something instead of like being in the process and feeling what's going on, like the pattern. And with that, I was also struggling a lot. And through some like DVDs, through the patterns, through some forms, from learning the timing of the transition and kind of remaining in the rhythm and like the pulsation of the patterns with words, that feeling was kind of like building up.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny as you say that, like, there's so many things that are going off in my mind. I'm sure listeners to this podcast are going to be like, that's me. Or like, we can relate. We all have these different moments that we're struggling with. Um, I want to keep moving and speak a little bit about your partnership as well, about um, as a couple who have trained together initially and taught together in the early days, and then become a life partnership and then go teaching and traveling. How would you say each of you complements each other just in relation to dance? Like, how would you say like you have different strengths or weaknesses, and each of you understands it? Like, how does that kind of work, or what strengths do you bring into the partnership, and or what strengths do you see in each other that you bring?
Mm-hmm.
I can share that kind of like thing, maybe because of ballroom, maybe because of something else. I learned a lot of choreographies in ballroom, and I was able to learn a pattern or like blocks of patterns like very quickly, but I was not able to feel all of them during the process of like movement. And I think it was also a difficulty for me for years is sensitivity in my body in terms of like movement in general, like to be able to feel my body as a whole, right? Um, and I think that was one of the strongest side of Maria is sensations and sensitivity to be able to feel everything. Even though what she shared right now in terms of like disco fox and speed, I think her ability to be able to feel her body and feel my body was at such a high level compared to mine. So that that was a challenging. I think it was a challenge for our partnership, especially during routines, because during the routines I was always complaining that Marie is too slow, and she was complaining to me that I was too rough, too strong sometimes, too powerful. And I think through years, I think we are so lucky that we understood this, that we actually help each other to grow and to understand our weak sides of our movement, of our dancing.
Is there are three main kind of qualities, in one dancer or like in the person that can be very well как проявлено?
Like appearing.
Yeah, that can be very strongly built already in the person, and some
Yeah.
of the quality with the weak spots. And there are three main of those. For example, there are thinkers, doers, and feelers. So kind of like people who feel a lot, like
Right.
people who do a lot, and people who think a lot about the movement or the dance. And for example, in Semion, the side of thinking and doing the dance were very strong, and like feeling the motion and the dance is weaker. In my part, it was thinking of the dance, and feeling was very strong, and the doing and kind of like the repeating of same thing was like a weak spot. So actually, like us, we fit each other kind of perfectly in these like puzzle thing, because Simon is like the reflection from both of us was always like on the same like more appearing level, but that doing and feeling, doing for Simon was very high, feeling for me was very high, and that somehow compensated each other. So but created some problems at the same time. But the partnership, because of like that difference, was kind of complete, because we fit each other just like a puzzle there in the needs. And the years of like training and reflecting on that, we were like building our weak sides on more like on a more balanced way. Yeah, so for me, I was learning the choreographies. Yeah, so I was like on this road of repeating the motions and like building that like doing quality. And Sinan was working on the sensitivity, especially because of the leading part.
Like somatic. That's why I'm in love right now with the somatics and breathing and qigong and like small movement in my body.
Yeah.
That's why I love to practice it right now, just because I feel that I need it the most.
I'll tell you a funny story. I ran a workshop about feeling, not thinking. I may have told you this before, but I got these partners and I said, right, we're not gonna think about anything, what our steps or timing or anything or what patterns we're leading as the leaders. And I gave you instructions to the follower. You're just gonna feel the lead. You're just gonna wait, et cetera, et cetera. And they did the first drill and I went, nah, they're not really doing it. And then so I kind of sternly told them, I need you to stop thinking, like stop thinking about the dancing. And I need you to feel the music. I need you to feel your body. I need you to feel your partner. I need you to feel the movement. I said, I'm going to start the song again, and then I want you to restart. And so when I played it, all the guys basically went in and gave their partner a big cuddle and was holding them. And in their minds, they're like, try to feel it. Try to feel it. Because Australian blokes, we don't have emotions. Like we're told to push them down. And so it was so funny. And I couldn't stop laughing. I said, you all just cuddled each other. Stop cuddling and feel the music, feel your body, and feel the connection. It was pretty funny, but I can relate. That's interesting. Can I ask you something about your partnership and your training? Because this is true for me right now. Um, when I train with someone, I'm very cautious about um, giving feedback because I know that sometimes it can be received negatively, or it could, even if I deliver it, I always try to deliver it in a very nice way, kind way as best I can. Um, but I also feel like if I'm training with someone who is, say, less experience, I kind of don't want them to feel the dogma of what I tell them, like, "Oh, this is the only way of doing it," or things like that. And I also don't wanna stifle their individuality. Um, we often, I've often heard it said about training a horse or a dog, you need to learn how to break its will, but you never wanna break its spirit. Is something that I might not that humans are like that, or I'm definitely not breaking anyone's will or spirit, um, but I don't wanna stifle the creativity and the learning journey of my training partners, by making them feel like they're obligated to dance a certain way if they're dancing with me or something. I'm kinda really mindful of that. I feel like it's a really, interesting topic because I've heard a lot of dancers say that they used to train with someone, but they just found they were overly critical. And then every time they went into practice, they just felt like this is terrible. But then on the other extreme, which is where I think I might be now, is that I'm literally not giving much feedback because I don't want the risk of that happening. How do you balance that? How do you find a way to gently communicate without um, forcing your ideas onto somebody, or um, treating it in a way that they can still express themselves and create something for themselves and be themselves?
Mhm. So beautiful question, and just the fact that you have that question and that's like you're very mindful about that. I think it's already amazing that like you think also about the growth, but also the feelings of your partner. Yeah, so it has that like empathy in it. It's amazing.
I would ask which type of feedback my partner wants to receive.
And if the partner wants to receive the feedback, so for example, there are some I think practices that, like we can be not opened for like the discussion or any feedback, and we just want to practice or just like feel the body or feel the joy of the movements. And sometimes there are very reflection events, and maybe to start from the self reflection can be also useful, like what you're working on, like what did you feel during the dance, like in terms of your own sensations, and that can start like that sharing process, and then it can be like some things can be discussed. Yeah, if the sharing already started. Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly what Maria said in terms of like in general, we was it a good time for the feedback? And if I would like to give a feedback, I asked at first about that, and then the second thing I think is which type of the feedback my partner would like to receive.
Mhm.
Personally, right now I'm in the state when I don't want to give a feedback. For example, when we practice with Maria, only when she requests,
Mhm.
and then I'm asking her like which type of feedback you would like to receive, like, and because I would like to have it more understanding of like specific field of it and the way how she would like to receive it. in the sense that it should be more strict or more kind. And I also pay attention to her state in terms of like she would like to have a little bit more motivation, or maybe I should kick her ass a little bit, because she needs that right now. But
Yeah.
and I feel that she needs that a little bit of me to be like a coach of her a little bit,
Yeah, or to give me some like particular feedback for something I've been working on, and I'm just like interested in it right now. Not because I'm also feeling something, but I also want to know what he feels like, what is his sensation from his side when we're doing the move or something.
But I think it's challenging subject just because it's not easy for us to change roles uh, during the practice. So that's why I think for years we still, as humans, no matter which context we play soccer or we dance or we play golf, we have coaches. I think it's exactly because of that, because it's difficult for us to be in the same context. For example, we are in a dance ballroom and we practice together. We have some music when we are in this artistic mode as dancers, and I think it's a huge challenge to change the role into the like a teacher or a coach or instructor, and then go back to the dancer. And I think it's almost impossible to not have this aftertaste that my partner just um, kind of like asked me to change something. Now I have to change something during the dance, and then exactly what you just shared, I start to during the next dance I start to think during about my technique during the dance, and thinking um, about your technique is the same when you imagine two people are kissing each other and one of them is thinking about the technique of kissing, right? So these things start to happen, and then kind of like our practice could be done for today.
Yeah.
It happened many times for us. That's why we started to laugh.
I can tell you that's happened for me as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Where you just end up I end up so in my head that it's like, this is over. There's nothing good's coming of this for the rest of the day. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting one. I think I've only just started teaching and running workshops and different things like that, and so stepping into that role with my peers, especially um, when they attend, it's like they're giving me permission to give them feedback. So in that classroom environment, type workshop environment, I can go around and say, "Can I show you something? Try this, etc." And there's nothing that's expected because they're wearing the hat of a student and they're saying you're wearing the hat of the instructor. So but in the partnership of a training partnership, it's different because you're equals and no one is the teacher and no one is the student, although you both are. So it feels like it's a tricky one to navigate. And my only concern is mainly, I think the biggest concern is one, not having any negative uh, vibes in it, but also that feeling of not wanting to change somebody into like what I want them to be. It's like, no, you are you. Like, how do we get the best of you and make this work? And that's one thing that I find a bit challenging. I really appreciate your honesty in that answer too, because that's some of the things that you said will stick, and I think I'll use that as well, especially the inquiry. What is it? What kind of feedback? And being aware of the kind of intensity that I could maybe deliver some feedback as well, and the way. Um, I want to move on a little bit to your teaching philosophy. You kind of touched on this, and I thought, this is a good time. Um, when you, one thing that we've discussed is like the method of doing something, and that globally, because of the way West Coast swing has evolved, there's different methods used to achieve a similar result. Um, for example, for context for the listeners, Um, at the end of last year, we had 2 different champions, 3 months apart, and one champion did a intensive, and he's I didn't even want to say he, but now I have. Okay, but he said stretch happens, or the anchor happens on the 5 and 6, and stretch happens between the 5 and the 6, and there is no counterbalance. You fully support your own weight. And everyone went, okay, we're doing it. And then we did it. 3-hour intensive on that. 3 months later, another champion visited our city and ran an intensive on similar topics and taught the group, the same group. The anchor happens on the 5 and the 6, and the stretch happens from the 6 to the 6 and you must be in counterbalance for the stretch to happen. And then you lead out on the 1 or the or a delay or whatever. And they were 2 totally different intensives, and they were both taught in the way that they were the absolute way. And at the end of the second workshop, the teacher of the school, Juan, and I were standing there talking, and he said, "You do know that they just told the complete opposite of what we were told 3 months ago." And he was sort of saying, what do we do with this? Because in his mind, he's teaching a school from beginners, and he kind of, as a school, you kind of want to teach one thing to help them get that consistency and understand, so they're all on the same page. So he was kind of stuck in this dilemma. And then and later on you can use the other techniques. But it kind of set a wildfire in the community, and like, wow, what's right, what's wrong? Semion, I'd love it if I know we've had this conversation privately before, where your sentiment to me is like, it's okay if it interests you, learn it, add it to your toolkit, or not, and it's okay. Could you describe sort of your teaching approach in a world of West Coast swing where you travel on the road and you teach so many people who maybe are taught catch and release, or constant connection over here, or stretch happens on the 5 and to the 6, and no, it doesn't, happens on the 6 to the 6 and, or whatever. How do you deal with that, or what's your mindset or your teaching approach for people who have different ideas?
At first, we meet this kind of adventure. We don't want to call that problem. We call it an adventure almost every weekend, and that's absolutely okay. We should not be scared of it. It's fine. I think we can look at dance context, right? In general, if you look at dancing, there is a angle or perspective, kind of like a dancing perspective. There is a body movement perspective, and there is also our attention perspective, how our attention works, right? And because to be able to grow and to be inspired, we with Maria for years we not practice just dancing, but we also practice a lot of body movement from other cultures. That's why we're like really open-minded in terms of how we move our body. Plus, we also read books and practice a lot of attention drills. As performers, as teachers, we need that. As coaches, as facilitators. But if we go back to dancing context, how we actually, for example, in West Coast swing, dance anchor step as an example, right? That's we discussed this with the many teachers, and one of our main coaches, Robert Russell, right? And we discussed it with him as well, in the sense that there are 5 facts of West Coast swing which makes the dance how it looks like and feels like, and the rest of it are opinions, right? And he has these 5 facts, and he shares it in the world simply because he talked with so many champion level dancers, and everybody agrees on that. And as soon as there is a disagreement, it becomes an opinion. So,
Okay.
and these 5 facts are very simple. It's first is rhythm of the dance. We have walk, walk, and triple, and variations of that. We have patterns of push, pass, and whip, and combinations of those. We have our dance is based on the stretch and compression, and that's how we define our space and the direction of a slot. And we have after every movement, after every turn, our center of gravity moves away from our partner, and that's what we call anchor. So we basically have a counterbalance in the end of the pattern, and what I forgot?
2-bit stretch at the beginning, 2-bit stretch at the end.
I mentioned rhythm. I forgot about for the follower is 1 and 2 is forward. Followers are stepping on 1 and 2 forward. Which direction leaders are traveling does not matter. It could be so different, but for the follower is also it has to be forward on 1 and 2. Otherwise, we lose the direction of the slot and we lose the momentum of the dance. So all of these 5 facts are there. Now, all the other principles and concepts become an opinion. So, for example, how you articulate your knees, your feet, your hips. When do you have to build this stretch, and how far your center of gravity has to go? How much weight should you have during your anchor? And all of the many details and things we talk about during the practices and workshops and then privates are important and not important at the same time. When I say important, they are important in a sense of practice, because we need to improve our awareness how we dance and how we move our bodies, how we communicate with each other, how we play with the music. We need to understand that, but to be able to understand that, we need to practice it through the research, through games, through different tasks and stuff like that. Otherwise, we will be if we have 2 strict rules, we will be dancing like in the box, right?
Yeah.
And we will become soldiers, not artists. But at the same time, we should not marry all of these details, because if we start to marry, we start to become too strict in our dance.
Plus, I think besides everything, I don't think there is concept that describes all the varieties of the dance, like all the varieties of the connection and like the range of that connection or the movement. And every concept creates like a frame and a framework for some purpose. And the idea is that you trying this concept and you kind of just digesting it with your body and see what it gives you like in the dance. And then there are lots of concepts, and some of them kind of clashes with each other. Some of them kind of just adding to each other, but it just goes through your body experience, and then it just stays in the dance, or maybe it doesn't stay in the dance, or maybe it has a very like delay effect on the dance because like it didn't work for the first time you tried, and then it kind of like dissolved in the dance in a little different form, but it was like this product of that concept. Yeah, so that's why I feel like it's very important what Simon says, not to marry to the concept, but trying to digest it for the dance and see what it gives you. So, for example, like the last example that I had. We asked a group to dance like completely neutral, like no swing, like from the center of gravity, like completely neutral,
like dancing 11s.
Yeah, to have some contact, of course, but like no typical stretch or like compression with the motion. And the students didn't like that, and they're like, "No, we don't like it. Like, we don't have that inertia. We don't have that energy." And like, what's good did you feel about that? And they were like, "Huh." So, but I felt like how my leg work. Like I felt that it's a little easier, like for the leg articulation. I felt like I'm very balanced. I felt like so, and they started to like reflect on what's good that bad feeling is giving, and like then we're moving that. So obviously, like we don't dance like that 100% of time, but there are moments of like turns, for example. Yeah, when you have that like a neutral stability and like very controlled like body weight on your feet, or for example um, like that leg articulation stays the same even though you start to use the swing action with your center of gravity. Like how about you bring that like good stuff about it? And I think that's cool to kind of rotate every concept in a different directions and kind of see, okay, how I feel about this, how I feel about this, what it gives me, what it's kind of lacking, like in a different perspective. And I think that's how you kind of digest the idea of the teacher, even though it's in a contradiction of the other ideas.
That's amazing. I feel like also there's a lot of people who dance, I would say like they develop skills to compensate for different situations they've been put in over and over and over again. But it's not necessarily the right technique. But let's say there's followers who dance defensively because someone once hurt their shoulder because of the leader's bad technique. So they've compensated and they're now doing something that is technically, let's say, less refined, but they're doing it for that reason. And like they haven't, trying to unlearn those things when you have battle scars is like a lot more difficult as well. But it's interesting to take that and then look at that concept and say, well, what do you like about this, or how's this to be used, and where can it be used if you did it this way? Like different kind of reframing, if you like. Very interesting.
Because actually, like me myself, like I know what concepts I based on, like in my dancing, but sometimes I like to do something completely opposite and something like very wrong to that concept, and that gives me some different feeling, like feeling of lightness or like I don't know, feeling of like freedom or something, you know. So um, I experience it within like myself sometimes, like when I do something contra intuitive to my own base of the dance. So
Isn't it funny that when that happens, sometimes you're like, oh, that works. It's like it opens up a different avenue for you to step into.
I tried to avoid it for so many times, but now I feel like it even gives me like some extra taste.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why we have some practices. Like we ask people during the classes, during private lessons, like to dance offbeat, to break their frame, to break their postures. Right? We ask people to cross the street on the red light. Right? But at first, that's a safe context for that, right? We ask them to look left and right, or right and left, depending where you are, right? But we understand that's why I'm just joking about that, just simply because we need to understand the context, right? That the workshop or practice, that's the best space to break rules.
Yeah. Yeah, not in a Jack and Jill.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, we're getting to the end of this podcast, so I just want to throw this out to us about the community in general, with the Level Up community. Um, Semion, you recently completed a video reviews of people's dancing. the one thing that I really appreciated is that right at the start, you gave a preamble. And this is what I think is going to be fantastic with you now being a part of the Level Up community, is because right at the start of that review, you said, please don't get married to these ideas because you don't know what their goals are. So, for examples, for those of you who aren't members, people were just putting up a competition dance video, for example, for open feedback, but or a social dance, and they didn't give any added context for Semion to be able to review. So his point was simply, I don't know what your goals are, but here's my advice. And one thing that I appreciate knowing you both and over time is that we've developed a relationship and where you now understand my goals and who I am and what I'm trying to achieve and my level of dance, a bit about my background. And I feel like as a community that this is where a lot of the growth, personal growth for a lot of the members will come from, is number one, beginning to understand your philosophy around the dance, your experience and the way that you teach and the way that you communicate and the way that you say, I'm going to say open doors for students to step through, which is what you've done for me many, many occasions. I feel like that's the strength of the community. And so it's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that you're our founding pros, because building the relationship between yourselves and the community members and vice versa, I think is going to really accelerate everybody's ability to learn and to grow and to experience new things and to really fall in love with West Coast Swing all over again. And I appreciate you both too, because I know how much you love to coach and teach and share and see that success. So I think I'm going to wrap this up with one last question and just say, if I was to say to you, what is it that you feel personally that an area maybe that you excel in with your coaching and with your dance teaching? What would be something that you think students might say about you, like, oh, I really appreciate them for this, or they have a really good ability in this area? As coaches and teachers, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but but what would you say is like one of the things that you feel is your strength in communicating and teaching and coaching people?
What is our strength, right? Oh,
Not as dancers individually, but as teachers and as coaches.
Actually, yeah, it's hard because there are
I
very
Well, I'm
different.
going to give you some time to think about this because I'm going to give you a story. In Australia, we have a saying, which is the tall poppy syndrome. Have you heard of that before? Tall poppy syndrome comes from if you looked at a field of poppies and one poppy was going up higher than the other, you would go and chop it down so that it looked uniform with all the other poppies in the field. And so that all the plants would be the same height. In Australian culture, that's who we are. If someone excels or does well or stands above the rest of us, everyone else chops them down to bring them back down to earth. That's our culture. So what you'll find with most Australians is we don't brag and we don't like people who brag. We don't like boasting. We don't like saying what we're good at. And so as a culture, knowing this, I had an idea for a video I wanted to do a couple of years ago, and I sent a message to a bunch of West Coast swing dancers, about 20, Zach Skinner, JP Masson, and a lot of my peers. And I asked them the question, hey, can you just tell me what are your strengths in West Coast swing? Out of the 20 people, only 2 people responded and answered the question. Some people refused to answer the question, and all the rest of them said, I can't think of any. I just know I've got so much to work on. And that's how they saw themselves. And yet I can tell, and I'm going to name names. Zach Skinner was one of those guys who we all look up to and know he's an incredibly good dancer. You know, and yet he feels that. That's the Australian way. So when I'm asking you, I'm not sure if that's the way it is where you are. If I ask this to most Americans, they'll know and they'll tell me straight away, oh, I'm good at this. We just don't do that here. But I can say on your behalf, Semi, and I know you're very, very good at leading your students to the answer, like and to the solution. And how you do that to me is masterful because you've done that with me. And Maria, I know when I've had private lessons with you one on one, your attention and the intensity of the attention that you give me and the clarity of your teaching and your answer is next level. It's so good. So that's what I could say if I was to say just two things or one thing about each of you, that would be it. But is there something that you would say, this is my strength, or this is an area that I'm good at?
I think right now I can share that I got a little bit better, I think. I cannot say that is my strength, but I think I would like to be better in the sense of what we touched a little bit before is being aware of which role I play. Because in our it could be looked like we're just dance teachers, but it's very, very dependent on the context where we are. I can give you a quick example. If we teach a workshop at a dance event, I think we are more instructors rather than coaches. But if I have an online or offline student in front of me, I'm more like a coach rather than an instructor. And I think using these different skills and communicate them properly, and as you, Steve, mentioned, and I'm very grateful to hear that because that's what I'm trying to do. Because I got it myself several times. The decision we make when we make it by ourselves, or a thought, or a skill, or a question we have by ourselves, is way more powerful rather than when it's someone is bringing this to us. So that's why I think coaching could be so powerful, just because of the conversation which we're having. We can have something kind of like aha moment inside, right? But it doesn't actually come from the person in front of us. It's coming from within us, and it's way more powerful. And it's difficult.
You didn't see this, Semion, just then, but the video just put a thumbs up on Maria's forehead that it looked like Maria was going, yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it happens to us during the workshops as well, when we simply share the practice with Maria to people, and we do not deliver them a core of it. We simply give them time, so we create conditions. That's basically facilitating. We create conditions for people so they practice and they actually touch this core of experience, and they get maybe a little bit of improvement because of them, because of their actions and because of their practice, not because of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Steve, for that question and for your experience with us, like reflecting on it. Because from my side, I think that responding to how I feel myself during the privates about the attention, because I think it's one of my qualities, like that I can be quite attentive, like for long period of time. Yeah, and
You're just fully present
yeah,
in the
yeah.
moment.
That's what I'm. Oh, I don't know, trying to bring. I can't say I'm doing it perfectly because I don't know. Perfectly doesn't exist. I think, like, uh, but yeah, I think the attention during the lesson, during the dance, is one of the best things that can be invested uh, for the student or for the partner. Um,
Yesterday we just talked with Maria about this cultural difference, what you mentioned, Steve, and like the thing you have in Australia. And we love with Maria, which people have in Chinese culture, when for example, tea, cup of the tea is never full, right? Or if you compliment them that there is like so much delicious food on the table, they will always tell you, no, 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 that's not enough, and it's not um, good enough. They will always not go into the fulfillment. They will always give a space for the improvement. Or if you look at the paintings, right, in the East, they always have space for on their paintings, right? It's not completely full with color or with the nature or with something, right? There's always space for something else, and I think that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah,
there is always a space for something else, for the improvement.
that's amazing. Guys, I really appreciate you joining me today. I will wrap this up. I'm mindful of time. I'm so excited that you're part of the Level Up West Coast Swing community online. I know when I announced it, I had people message me and just say, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" So we're just getting started, but it feels like it feels like we're on the right path to helping the global community improve and grow and come together and do what we love doing. So really appreciate you both. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, Steve.
I look
And
forward to seeing you on the inside.
thank you, everyone, for listening.